We literally had a job up on the roof, and we needed to move a cooling tower about 3 feet over. Mm-hmm. So we had already extended out the stand that it was setting on. Mm-hmm. And I think we had $20,000 in the job to get a crane out, block off a street in Dallas, set up the crane, pick up the cooling tower, swing it over 3 feet, and set it back down.
Wow.
And that's a day's worth of work.
Yeah.
You know, by the time you set it up, you get everybody up there, you've got safety involved, you've got lanyards involved. It's a day's worth of work. Mm-hmm. Plus permits, plus the crane rental, plus everything in the world. And once we built that, I was up there looking at it, and I thought, if we'll build some kickers on this end and put these high lift jacks here, I'd be willing to bet that 2 of us can jack this thing up and slide it over. Mm-hmm. And we did. It took about 3 hours with 2 high lift jacks. We spent $1,000, but we saved 20. Tradesmen built America. Not policymakers or desk jockeys, but hardworking, blue-collared men and women. Join me, Roger Wakefield, on conversations with some of the nation's most successful skilled laborers. This is the Trade Talks. So tell me about the hardest day you've ever had at work.
There's been so many hard days, to be honest. A lot of it comes from inexperience and wanting to do well. There's a ton of frustration with that when you try to be perfect, but you only have 3 years experience. I can say one of my lowest points in plumbing was working in a ceiling, and I had a trap, cast iron 4-inch trap that was suspended in the ceiling, and didn't have enough supports on the whole thing, and trying to get that trap back together was a nightmare. I just needed a third arm, but I didn't have a third arm. Not a freak. And I was hanging on to that trap and sobbing to myself alone in a ceiling on a little genie lift. And that was probably my lowest point in the trade, where I was like, I can't get this thing back assembled. I did, but in that moment, it felt like it took forever. My arms were tired. Everything hurt. But that would probably be my lowest point in the trade. The hardest day, for sure.
Have you ever had days that made you want to quit?
Yes, that was also one of them. But I've had a lot of times where I'm encountering sometimes even people where they're so difficult to work with, not just your job. Sometimes people are so hard to deal with that you just want to leave your tools there and don't care what happens to them. You want to walk off the job and, I don't know, go be a nurse, go do something else, anything but this right now. But those moments, they pass.
So you say 3 years experience.
Mm-hmm.
What made you get into the trades?
Initially, I was working an office job, and while it wasn't necessarily hard work, I was putting my time and effort into it, and I wasn't making the greatest money. I didn't really fit in with the group. I wanted to make sure that I was taken care of, and I also bought myself a horse when I was 18. Not a great financial decision, but emotionally, the best thing ever. And I need to make sure that I can always take care of my horse. And so she's one of the largest contributing factors as to why I got into a trade. So I took a pre-apprenticeship program and learned the basics of plumbing, started working in the trade, and I thought it was going to be easy. It was not, but I continued with it because it was challenging. It kept me learning, which is something an office job did not offer me.
Is it more challenging physically or mentally?
I'd say mentally. Service can be challenging mentally. Just things that are supposed to work and them not working is very, very frustrating. A valve seized, a valve that appeared to be isolating all of a sudden decides not to isolate the water anymore, and you're in the middle of sweating joints. Yeah. Mentally frustrating for sure. There are physical challenges for sure.
Needing 3 arms.
Yeah, that would be great, but not going to happen. But most of the time, it is mentally frustrating sometimes.
So take a second and tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Okay, well, my name is Luara. On Instagram, I'm known as My Plumbing Adventure, essentially, I'm a plumbing apprentice in Toronto, Canada. I am recently I'm new to the local union, United Associations, Local 46. I document my apprenticeship on Instagram, and I did a little bit of TikTok, but not too into it. So what I do is I post videos of what I do on the daily on Instagram.
You got in the United Association. How long ago did you join the union?
I think I've been with them for 8 months. So very, very new to them.
I started out in open shop here in the United States and worked 17 years. Had my plumbing license, had my med gas license, joined the union, got my med gas license, and then got my master's and other endorsements. But I learned once I got into the union, there's a lot of opportunity for education, a lot of opportunity for learning. Now, as a third-year apprentice, you still go to class, go to school, correct?
We do 3 terms of schooling. That's mandatory. So we have our basic level 1, our level 2, which is an intermediate, and then your advanced. And then from there, you can go and write your testing. So those are our only 3 mandatory schooling requirements.
So how is school set up? Because here in the United States, when you become an apprentice, you hopefully get put out on a job. Everybody doesn't. So you may be going to class and not be working until a call comes in. But here in the United States, school is set up just like high school and college. So when they're on summer break, you're on summer break. When they get spring break, you get spring break. But you work 40 hours a week during the week, and you can even work overtime, just not the nights you have school, because you have to be at school at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, whatever time they're starting. And it's 3 hours of school twice a week, or 3.5, somewhere around in there. How's y'all's training set up?
Very different. I think yours is probably better. How ours work is we go to school, and it's I've only done my basic, my level 1 right now, but my experience was that when you get the call for school, you have to let your company know. You go on unemployment, and so you make half the money that you were making before, which is very hard because some people in the trades have families and mortgages and things that they need to take care of, and their income has now been reduced to half. So being able to work is an amazing advantage, but you can't. And I think it's pretty much 3 months that you're off work and getting insurance money from, I guess, the government, unemployment. That's how we do it. It would be very nice to be able to work.
If somebody gets out of high school and they want to get into the trades, plumbing, electrical, whatever it is, how's it set up for them? Is there an aptitude test? Or do you just walk in and say, hey, look, I want to be a plumber and join the plumbing school? Or how's it in Canada?
At first, you'd have to find somebody who's willing to take you as an employee and train you. And that is probably the hardest part of starting your apprenticeship is finding a job. It's very hard for, at least it was for me, for somebody to hire me because they wanted a 3rd year or 5th year. And I'm like, I know nothing. So essentially, after you work for some time, then you'll get your letter for school to go, and you have to be registered. And there's a lot of people who are working in the plumbing trade as apprentices, but they're not registered. And that's actually a huge problem. It was, I think, my first 8 months before, and with my very first company, I wasn't registered. I was technically, I suppose, a helper or a laborer. I don't know. You would have to be registered first, and then after working some hours, you get your call for school. But our school is so backed up. When I went to school, I was a 2nd year, and everybody there was 4th year, on average about 4 years into the trade and just doing their level 1.
Now, are you in the same classes then?
Yes.
So you've got 4th years doing their level 1.
Correct.
So how'd you get in earlier?
I was always calling the ministry, and they give you the ring around. They don't give you an answer. So I ended up contacting the school directly, and they got me in. There was a very nice lady there who helped me out. So I was not expecting to be the least experienced in that classroom, but I was. Everybody else, like I mentioned before, 4th year or higher.
So you're in class in Canada. How many people are in class?
I'd say it's a good sized group, 30 to 40.
Okay.
Full class, yeah.
How many girls in the class?
Me and one other. Yeah,
So
she was a nice girl.
2 out of 40.
Yeah, 2 out of 40.
Okay. How'd you feel after you went through this class with 95% male, 5% female? Did that bother you?
No, not at all. I did hang out with the girl a lot, but guys there were all very nice. There were a few people in there who are like, class clowns and stuff, but other than that, I think I got along great with everybody.
What's the neatest thing you learned in your first class? That you literally, when you walked in, you had no idea or never even thought about it?
Well, what was lucky for me is because I did a pre-apprenticeship program, which is a longer, more drawn out and detailed version of your level 1. So going into level 1 was essentially just a crash course of what I learned in my pre-apprenticeship. But I could say that my first year or my pre-apprenticeship is what blew my mind really in terms of the education, because I thought plumbing was turning a wrench and then somebody hands you like $1 bajillion and you're happy. But it turns out there's a lot of theory and engineering and math, and a lot more goes into plumbing than turning a wrench and collecting money. So I think basic plumbing theory, slope is something I never even thought of, and it is so basic. But didn't even think about that. The importance of using the correct material, the public health is so crucial if you don't do your job properly. Mm. I think that's really what blew my mind, was how important plumbing is to society.
Plumbers protect the health of the nation.
Yes.
Well, plumbers say it all the time. Nobody else says it, because I think that's, to me, one of the biggest reasons. To me, plumbing is the best trade, period. If a plumber doesn't do his job right, people can die.
Yes.
If an electrician doesn't do his job right, a house could catch on fire and people could die. I get that. HVAC, they could get hot. They could freeze to death. But plumbing can affect an entire family, an entire neighborhood. It's life critical. So it's such a big deal. What was it like joining the union?
My introduction to the union was a little bit different probably from others. The company I was with before, it was non-union, but a very large company. And the union and my previous company seemed to be at war with one another. So most
open shop companies and unions are, I'm not going to say they're at war. There is no respect from one to the other in any of those situations that I've ever seen until some of the local unions here in Dallas started subbing work from a non-union contractor. And we'll talk about that, because it blows my mind how a non-union contractor can bid work, get it, and then make enough money on it they can sub it out to a union contractor to do all the work. I often look at it and wonder, wait, what is the union doing wrong? Mm-hmm. So anyway, go ahead. Back to your story.
So essentially, when I decided to leave my previous company, just because I felt the work was repetitive and that there's more for me out there, when I thought of joining the union, they were more than willing to take me because they want to pick out my previous company's employees and make them union. So I did leave my company, joined the local 46 union, and now I'm in low-rise construction. And for me, getting into the union, it was like open doors, very, very easy. When I first started, I did try to join the union, like first year, and I didn't even get a rejection. I was ignored. So it was very easy for me to get into the union my second attempt, but only because I came from a company they competed with.
There's good things and bad things about the union from my point of view. I've been a union contractor. I've been a union employee. I think as an employee, it's phenomenal. Great insurance, great benefits, great pay. I mean, great education. Yeah. I wish that my union here, again, the UA, the United States version of it, I wish that I could talk to them about, like you said, you're in low-rise construction. It's residential.
Yep.
If the union would do residential in the United States the way Canada does, I think the UA could double its size. It blows my mind that they're not looking and pursuing things like this. So, Mark McManus, if you're watching, we should talk. Tell me this. You applied union before, didn't even get, like you said, didn't even get a rejection letter.
Yeah.
Just, hey, you were never here.
Yep.
What made you want to go back? Why the union?
Actually, because I knew that they did offer education, and my previous company was going to send me to school for backflow, and I was very, very interested in that. And then they decided to go with somebody else. Actually, a new hire. That offended me, but I knew with the UA I could further my education in the trade. And they don't just offer backflow gas and all those other trade related courses. You can take money management courses, and that's actually something I'm interested in as well. It's not because I'm bad with money, but it's because I live on earth and I use money. So why would I not want to know how to manage it properly? And those are like the kind of things that I think everybody should probably take a money management course, because everybody's going to use it. And the resources at the UA are almost seems unlimited. There's a lot of things to learn, and they can get you there.
Have you got online and gone into the UA University?
I have not.
I did that and I loved it.
Yeah.
Got in and started taking the construction management course. Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved it. I think the UA has got some amazing benefits. I think if they would try to grow more, it'd benefit not just them. I think it'd benefit the countries we live in. How is construction in Canada? Do y'all have all the people you need? Are you trying to get more? Do you have enough plumbers, electricians, and HVAC techs, or is that something you really look at?
I don't know numbers, but I know that we do need more people in the trade. I think one of the reasons why they're so pushing the idea of getting women into the trades and stuff like that is because they need to tap into the other 50% of the population, because we don't necessarily just need women in the trade. We just need humans in the trade. So, we need them in all trades.
How do the other tradespeople treat you? Are you welcome on the job site? Is there any problem? Or is it, hey, you're a female, just stand over in the corner and watch us work? How do they treat you? I
think everybody treats me the same. I've never had any issues, which is really great, because I've heard some people, mind you, they're in the United States, say that they've had issues. But my personal experience being a woman in the trade has been really good. I've never been mistreated. I've always felt like I'm able to participate. When people speak, they always include me. And so it's been a very, very good experience so far. I know on social media people say things, but in real life, I've never had any issues with being a woman in the trade. There are haters on social media. Yeah. Just so you know. Yeah. They're going to hate, let them, it doesn't matter. You're just trying to show people what your day looks like. Yeah. How did you find your first job? So when I finished my pre-apprenticeship program, COVID was really starting to shut things down. So companies were... In Canada, y'all shut down hard. We did. I mean, I've got friends that live up near you. Yep. And it was literally like, okay, you can't leave your house. Yeah. I think y'all had a deal set up where if you were single, you had one friend that you could invite or spend time with. If you had a family, that's the people you spend time with. Yes. And I remember talking to her about going to the grocery store. Said you would walk in a grocery store and half of it would be roped off, saying, look, this stuff's not essential, you don't need it. And that was 30 minutes from you, because we've talked about where you were at. Yeah. Right. I don't remember that sections in the grocery store per se, but all of our restaurants, salons, things like that, which were deemed non-essential, were all shut down. But going back to getting into the trade, it was... COVID was running rampant and things are slowing down. Even I believe our construction sites had shut down briefly. I was looking for work in the worst market, and I live in Mississauga, or just outside of Toronto, and I went on my phone and I looked up all these plumbing companies in Mississauga, and I wrote down a list so that I wouldn't call these companies twice. And I called them and I'm like, hey, are you looking for a helper or plumbing apprentice? I did a pre-apprenticeship program and I'd like to get started in the trade. And I'm not exaggerating. I had a list of like 200 people, and I got rejected by all but two. Two of them gave me a maybe. Now how big is your town? Big, yeah. Okay. I got 2 maybes, and they told me to follow up with them in a few months when this whole COVID thing blows over and we pick up again. So in a couple of months, I contacted the 2 maybes. One gave me a no, and the other one said, perfect timing. Come aboard. So that's how I got into the trade. But I mean, I faced a lot of rejection. The hardest thing was getting into the trade and finding somebody who was willing to take me, because nobody would take me. And it was easy to think, oh, well, they just don't want to take me because I'm a girl. It's so easy to think that way. And it makes me feel better, because at least I know it's not my fault. Right. But really it's because nobody wants somebody as green as me. Oh my God, you should have seen me my first day. Oh. Embarrassing.
So tell me about the first day.
My first day, I met my journeyman and the owner of the company, very small company. They did custom new builds, so it was great to learn. I wish I was smarter back then and able to absorb what I was learning, because my journeyman, he was so smart. And my coworker, who was a second-year apprentice, when I first met him, I thought he was a journeyman because he was installing a bathtub. And I'm like, this man's a genius. He knows how to do a bathtub. But he's a second-year apprentice, so that just shows you how green I was. I was very, very green. And I thought, because I did well in my program and my pre-apprenticeship, that I was going to be blowing them away. They would be so impressed with me. And I was like, wait, I don't know how to do these measurements to get the overflow. And I don't know how to do this. I'm sorry. Like, I can't help you. I'm a body, but I can't help you. So after my first day, I had gone up to my mom, and it was after my first week. Actually, I cried to her because I was so disappointed in myself. I really thought I was going to do better. I thought it was going to be amazing. But there's so much to learn, and every day was different. So what I learned yesterday, I can't go ahead and apply it tomorrow because we're not doing another bathtub.
You bet.
Now we're doing venting.
Something I know nothing else about.
Yeah, I can't cut pipe straight, but I cut my finger really good. So, yeah, it was a hard learning curve that first year.
How long did it take you to feel comfortable?
Probably about a year in, I started feeling more comfortable. I did go leave that company, or I guess they laid me off. I don't think I was performing to what they wanted me to perform at, and that's fair. I don't think I did. I agree.
And how long did they keep you again before they laid you off?
Oh, I'd say about 6 months. I was with them 7 months, maybe.
So enough to get a little experience.
Yeah.
And then hopefully you knew how to cut pipe straight.
Yeah, and then I went into commercial service. And then it was like, oh no, ground zero. I don't know how to do any of this. I don't know what a flushometer is. I don't know how to operate a K60. But I was back with a journeyman and learning pretty quickly with them. I don't know if it's because I was very, very interested in service, or I had excellent teachers, or a combination of both. But I've had like exponential growth in terms of doing well. Relatively, as well as an apprentice can do. I started to feel more confident in myself when I joined that service team.
What are your goals when you walk on the job now? You're in the union, and you're with a company. What if they pulled you out of the crew you're on, out of the group you're with, and sent you over to another crew tomorrow on a completely different project? What are your goals when you walk onto a job site?
I would hope that I'd be able to do an adequate job. That's my goal, is just to do my best. I understand if it's something like I haven't done before, I'm going to ask questions. And that's something I had an issue with when I first started, was I didn't know how to do something, and then I would try it, and then I'd have to rip it out and redo it. I would make sure that I understand exactly what it is that I have to do. And if I have to rephrase my question or ask it again, I will, because we're not wasting any more material here. But my goal would just be essentially just to understand what's expected of me and to do my best.
What is your favorite thing about plumbing right now?
I like putting things back into proper operations. So if things are malfunctioning, I like the feeling of making them function again. And I like that more than replacing things. Relatively removing and replacing is easy, and sometimes that has to be. So like if it's cracked pipe, you got to replace it. Censored faucets, things like that, like they can be very, very expensive, thousands of dollars. So you can't just be like, I'll replace it for you.
Just get a new one.
Yeah, insane. So little intricate parts, some wiring, things like that. I like putting things back in working order. That's probably my favorite part. And sometimes when people can be like really impressed that you did that, and it's like, oh yeah, don't worry, I just popped off a diaphragm and now it's not continuously flushing anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really nice. I find it personally rewarding.
As a third-year apprentice, what do you think is the greatest thing you get to do on a job site every day?
Right now, I'm in low-rise construction, so I don't really feel like I do anything particularly great. It's very repetitive work, but in service, I really liked repipes. I don't know why. Sometimes they were very hard, but I liked repipes on particularly drainage. I like working with fire-rated PVCs and stuff like that. Cast iron is cool. I don't necessarily like working with it just because of its weight, but I do like repipes.
Do y'all tunnel up under buildings? Do y'all jackhammer up the floor, cut it open? How do you, if you walked into a house today in Canada and I said, hey, there's a leak on this line from here to here, would you saw cut the floor open or jackhammer it open and get to it? Would you tunnel under it? How would you fix that?
I would assume that the floor would be broken. Yeah, that's how, I guess it would be saw cut.
So y'all cut and go through the floor?
Yeah. The company I'm with doesn't do that. We're strictly new construction.
See, here in Texas, we will tunnel up under a building to keep from messing up the floor.
Oh, wow.
And yeah.
You guys are nice.
I've seen some houses that have 100-foot tunnels up under them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Imagine being the plumber to crawl under there and work.
I was just, oh my goodness. Wow.
So commercial service, what's your favorite thing about that?
Definitely repipes. I also like exploring the city. I learned downtown Toronto really quickly doing commercial service because those buildings are old. It's an old city and they need work. I like going downtown and doing the work down there. But I like I said before, I like the repipes. I like putting things back in proper operation. I think what's so great about service is that your job site is different every day. The people you meet are different almost every day. And while not everybody is nice and fantastic, you don't have to see them again tomorrow. So that's really, it's a refreshing job. Very, very refreshing.
Where do you think you learn the most?
Commercial service. Yeah, definitely learn the most. Unfortunately, with low rise, I didn't get a chance to rough in, at least with the union. I did with my very first plumbing company, but again, I was so green. Unfortunately, all the information that was being gifted to me was just bouncing right off my head. So unfortunate. I wish I could go back in time and absorb what my journeyman was telling me. I wish I could, because back then I just couldn't do it.
So what kind of journeyman do you prefer to work with?
I haven't really thought about it. I don't want to say like older ones, but one of my best journeymen I ever had was an old plumber, and he was grouchy, but he very endearing. I don't think he knows how endearing he was, but he was grouchy and so intelligent, heavy smoker, but just such, I called him a wizard. That's what I would call him, because he could make things work, and he knew so much about plumbing. And when I was out on my own and I had issues, he was my go-to guy. Sometimes I would make my life and my job harder, and he would give me crap for that. But he'd still help me in the end. Even if he knew I was dumb. He knew, but he was just so good. He was so good. So the more experience they have, it doesn't really matter about their personalities, whether or not that they're nice to you or whatever. As long as they're teaching you, that's the most important part, because that's what they're there for. And these old guys, they have some knowledge about some old pipes that you maybe will never install, but if you're in service, you're going to come across it, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to know what you're dealing with. And if you don't, call that journeyman, because he'll know.
I've had the same conversation with Randy. I've had the same conversation with Jamie, a Boilermaker from Canada, Boilermaker and iron worker. And, you know, that's one thing everybody says is, look, the old guys have knowledge. Learn from them. A lot of people don't want to do that. They're hard to work for. They're grumpy. I don't want to be with them all day. But the knowledge there can be amazing. Mm-hmm. Do you have apprentices working with you yet?
I do not. At my second company, where I was doing commercial service, I did have a co-op student a few times. I didn't particularly enjoy him. I could see his heart wasn't in it. I think he said he wanted to be a professional hockey player, and he was just doing this for high school credits. And geez, what were we doing? We were changing a couple of spuds, inch and a half brass toilet spuds for commercial toilets, and they had rusted. So they're seized, they're hard to get off. And at the sight of the rust, he had started gagging. And I was like really unimpressed with that. Like, it's rust. And you're a man. Like,
and you're supposed to be a plumber, so come on.
It really just rubbed me the wrong way. I did not like that. So that was my only experience working with somebody. But this is somebody who really wasn't, oh, I want to be a plumber. This guy was like, I want to be a hockey player, and I'm going to throw up now. Ugh, worst.
You walk into a class with 40 people. How many of them are trying to be the very best? And how many of them are just there to get a check?
I'd say a majority of them are there for a check. There to socialize when they're going to school. They're there for the break. They're so glad they don't have to go to work today. A lot of them. But luckily, the group of friends I made there were the people who were passionate about the trades. They sat in the first or second row. Those are the people you want to surround yourself with for sure. You definitely want to fit in socially. I get that drive, but like that's not where you want to be. You want to be learning your trade because you have to master this, guys. Like it's very important. We spoke at the beginning about how important plumbing is to public safety and public health. This is very serious. I would say unfortunately, a small percentage of people are there to be the best and a majority are there to get a check.
One thing that I try to teach people all the time is, look, try to be the very best. It's not hard to do, especially these days because there's not near as many people trying. Mm-hmm. There's people showing up every day like I'm here for the check.
Yes.
Just tell me what to do. I'll do it as slow and lazily as I can. Mm-hmm. And I tell people, look, if you really want, and especially in the union, think about this. I hear this a lot. Well, I don't like being in the union. I get laid off a lot. I'm like, well, then you're not doing your job very well. Mm-hmm. When I hear that, I'm like, I didn't get laid off. I didn't sit on the bench. I didn't do things like that. Mm-hmm. I only left a company when another company was trying to hire me to come to work for them. So I'd talk to them and work an agreement out or whatever. What do you think that it takes to try to be the very best these days?
Honestly, I don't know if I'm qualified to even give an opinion on this, but educating yourself and learning things from the people who are supposed to teach you, keeping an open mind and making sure that you're...
I think you're on the right track. I think it starts with education and a mindset. You've got to want to be the best.
Yeah. I think educating yourself and taking advantage of any resource that you have available to you, whether it be your journeyman, whether it be courses outside of the union or in the union, reading and even talking to manufacturers about how to work their products, buy a Sloan book. I think they're like $14 and you'll get every single Sloan product in that book, parts, their names, everything. So learn. That's how you become the best, is you learn everything. Get your hands on anything and everything that you can.
I got to go to Sloan's testing facility and up in Erie, PA. And I'm telling you, it was so cool to see how they test and how they create floods and how they test load limits on toilets and just so many different things. And it was so neat. So I love that. Get all the information you can and then use it, study it. One thing I tell people too is if you want to be the very best in your niche, in your trade, in your industry, whatever it is, get up every morning and for 30 minutes to an hour, study it. Meaning study product knowledge materials, there's new tools, materials, equipment, technology every day.
Yes.
Know what's out there. Know something about it. I remember going to a house one time and to reroute water lines. And I stopped and picked up copper and fittings and torches and all this. And I go over to this house, the lines are all PEX. I'm like, I don't even have the stuff to do this with.
Right.
And I knew what PEX was because I studied it, but I had never messed with it. But so I knew, okay, here's what I need. Here's what I've got to do, yada, yada, yada. I used to enjoy working with the apprentices that came in. I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to go do this section here by myself. Don't make me work with this journeyman today. Let me go lay this out. Let me rough this in. Let me do what I need to do over there. What would you tell somebody right now thinking about getting into the trades? What kind of a mindset do they need to have?
I would say that they need to have an open mindset. They need to embrace people that they're going to work with for what they are. If they're not particularly friendly with you or whatever they may be, they'll also have to be tough to a certain degree mentally because the work can be frustrating. And when people that are teaching you are frustrated, sometimes it can be unpleasant, but it is what it is. And it's rewarding work. So I would encourage them to stick with it.
How was it going through the hiring process to get a job, the interview process, things like that?
My very first job, I didn't really get an interview. I called around, but my very first plumbing interview was with my second company. I was so nervous because I knew I wasn't skilled yet, and I was very impressed with the company. They had a nice shop. They were clean and organized, and it looked like they did some great work. And I felt like I was definitely going to drop the ball here. I was like, I am not going to do very well. They do things that I've never even encountered because I come from residential, and these guys are commercial. They work in huge buildings. What am I doing here? But it went really well, and I got the job. Somehow I convinced them. So I was very happy to work for them. Best company.
And I love that attitude, because I tell people, as long as you understand the person interviewing you has a need, and if you understand that need, you have the opportunity in the interview process to communicate with them and let them know, look, I can fill that need. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to try. I'm willing to bust my tail, whatever it is. What kind of questions did they ask you during the interview process?
I honestly couldn't tell you word for word what they asked me. I feel like with them, I spoke more than I should have. I think I revealed just how unknowledgeable I was about the trade very quickly. I think I told them that I had tried augering a toilet once and I couldn't pass the integral trap. And I watched the guy in the background who owned the company like frown very quickly. And I was like, oh, Luara, shh, don't talk. Don't talk anymore. But yeah, like when I had only attempted one auger of a toilet, and that's what I mean. Like I couldn't even auger a toilet when I started with them. I was so green. So green.
Can you auger toilets now?
I can auger toilets, unfortunately.
How's the K60 now?
Oh, I love it. God, that is an amazing machine. That's an amazing machine. I love it. I have one of my own.
Good.
I love it.
Now, why do you have one of your own? How is it in Canada when you're at an open shop company versus compared to a union shop? Do you supply your own tools at both, at either one, or do you love a K60 so much you just want one at home next to your bed when you go to sleep,
right?
To feel comfortable knowing
buddy.
It's there. Yeah.
When I was non-union, the company I was with, although non-union, was very competitive with the union. They would supply you tools. If you needed a very special tool for a specific job, one you're never going to need again, you can buy that tool and they'll reimburse you for it. In the union, they do supply you with all your tools and whatnot. However, the quality of those tools and whether the fact that they're brand new is questionable. So you may not get the best tools because companies got to keep their costs down. And yeah, so I like to use my own tools. I have a lot of tools, but that would be probably one of the biggest differences with union and non-union is that a union, you can walk in with a tape measure, a level, and a pair of pliers, and everything else is company supplied. But I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. I like to have what I need to do the job quickly. I don't want to be there all day. Especially
in service. In service, you need sewer machines, cameras, leak detection equipment, whatever it is. And I've had a friend of mine in here and interviewed him, and he says, look, I've got every tool in my truck I would ever need.
Yes.
Because that same reason. And at the companies he works at, they have efficiency ratings. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm 100. He says, I always 100% efficient. We bill 100% of my day, all day, every day. But it's because I have everything I need. I never have to leave to get it. And I love that. He's got things set up a really good way. And I always thought, man, that's such a great way to be. People that invest in themselves, whether it's tools, whether it's education, whatever it is, they're going to do better. They're going to learn more. They're going to grow.
Yes.
They're going to take better care of their tools. I was doing a remodel in downtown Dallas, and I ordered 2 high lift jacks. Okay. So I've got a Jeep. I've got 4-wheel drives. That's what I've always had. The jacks came in, I put them up, and I knew what I was going to do. And I got a phone call about 3 days later from my superintendent, the head superintendent. And he says, man, I never question you on tools. He said, and I'm not going to now. He said, I assumed you ordered these high lift jacks because you need them. I said, absolutely. I'm not even going to ask you what you're doing with them. I just want to know that when the job's done, I get at least one of them. And I laughed. I said, look, I love that idea. I said, let me tell you why I ordered them. He said, look, I'm not asking you. I said, no, I understand. We literally had a job up on the roof, and we needed to move a cooling tower about 3 feet over. Mm-hmm. So we had already extended out the stand that it was setting on. Mm-hmm. And I think we had $20,000 in the job to get a crane out, block off a street in Dallas, set up the crane, pick up the cooling tower, swing it over 3 feet, and set it back down.
Wow.
And that's a day's worth of work.
Yeah.
You know, by the time you set it up, you get everybody up there. You've got safety involved. You've got lanyards involved. It's a day's worth of work. Plus permits, plus the crane rental, plus everything in the world. And once we built that, I was up there looking at it, and I thought, if we'll build some kickers on this end and put these high lift jacks here, I'd be willing to bet that 2 of us can jack this thing up and slide it over. And we did. It took about 3 hours with 2 high lift jacks. We spent $1,000, but we saved 20.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, this was cool.
That is very cool.
And I love the idea. I always think outside the box.
Yeah.
What can we do different? Because being in the trades, we have a builder's mindset. In my wristband on the inside, it says blue collar workers are the original thought leaders. Do you feel that sense of pride in the trades of, man, look, we build some of the coolest stuff there is?
Oh, yes. Actually, I'm very proud to be in plumbing. I'm so glad that I'm a plumber, actually. I'm very grateful to the trade. And I think people who are in the trade should definitely be proud of themselves because it's a fantastic career. And you can make it as good or as bad as you want it to be. And I want it to be good. And plumbing has been very good to me.
And when you say you can make it as bad, don't get me wrong, there's bad days even if you want them to be good.
That's right.
And it's not for the faint of heart. Have you run into anything you're like, I can't do this or I can't learn this?
There's been tons of times that I've been intimidated by the trade where I look at this and I'm like, oh man, I'm never going to get this. And then you do. And it's a fantastic feeling. Honestly, I can't even remember the things that challenged me that hard because now it comes to you eventually. Things, even after you understand a system, it may not always be easy work. Valves might not properly isolate. People won't let you shut down the building even though it needs to be shut down or whatever obstacles that come your way. But it's a fantastic trade, and these challenges are what keep people, or at least myself, interested in it. If it was easy and I could do it with my eyes closed, then it's just an office job.
What made you start doing social media?
Well, the reason why I started documenting my stuff on Instagram was because initially I was doing it on Facebook. And on my Facebook, I have like 60 people, and they're all my family and like very, very close family friends. So it's just like my aunties, and I'd post a picture of me pulling something crazy out of a drain, and they'd be like, what are you doing? And so I'd have to explain the very, very basics of what I was doing. And so I thought I would just post it on social media, on Instagram specifically, because that way I'm entering a community where everybody is a plumber and they understand. I don't have to give them the basics of what I'm doing. They could look at a picture or a video and be like, I know exactly what you're doing. That community there taught me a lot because now instead of having a couple of journeymen, I have 1,000 journeymen who are willing to teach me. So it was really great. But yeah, essentially I started my plumbing adventure because on Facebook, my album was called Plumbing Adventures. And on Instagram, I'm My Plumbing Adventures. So I just started documenting my apprenticeship. And the idea is that if you scroll down to the bottom of my page and start to go up, you should see growth. You should see that, wow, she's learning and she's really started really rough at the bottom of her page. But as you go up, it seems to be flowing a little bit easier for her. She's getting better. And that's what I want to see. And that's what you will see.
How often do you video?
Lately, it's been not as much as I like, but I used to, when I was doing service, I used to film every day. It wasn't hard to just pop my camera over there and record and just proceed as normal. Really annoying when you think you're filming and you're not, but
happens.
Yeah, it happens. But yeah, in service, I was filming almost every day because everything was interesting to me. Unfortunately, what I'm doing now is rather redundant, so it's not as interesting to me. I'm like losing my drive to film it because I don't know how much you want to watch me install this Delta faucet again. Do you want to watch that?
You know, it's neat because you never know when you're going to run into a different problem. Mm-hmm. You know, the angle valve didn't work. The shutoff didn't work. The faucet was rusted in. We had to cut it out. We had to drill it out, you know, whatever it is. I understand where you're coming from. If all you're doing is lavatory faucets on new construction homes every day, Okay, nobody's going to want to see that.
Yes.
I get it. But maybe you take your camera and show them other things. You know, hey, this is Tony. He's working on water heaters. You know, hey, Tony, what are the 3 things I need to know to install a water heater the right way? And then you bring other people into it, but you also ask them questions and learn from them. Could be fun. Could be neat.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So again, tell everybody where you're at on social media, where they can find you if they want to follow you, watch your journey, learn from you, stuff like that. Where all are you at?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram as My Plumbing Adventure, and primarily I'm just using Instagram. Here and there I will use TikTok, but my bread and butter right now is Instagram.
If you went back to the very first day that you walked out of your house to go to your plumbing job, knowing what you know right now, what would you go back and tell little Laura that day?
I would tell myself to bring a voice memo thing and record everything, because my first journeyman was so smart. But I would congratulate myself on making such a great decision. I don't think I'd change really too much about it. I really wouldn't. I think it went exactly the way it was supposed to go. I think this journey it started rough, but it's going exactly the way it's supposed to go, I think.
Is there one thing in particular you've learned along the way that you wish you'd learned sooner?
I wish I was more patient with myself. That is one thing. I do want to be the best. I want to do the best I can all the time. And I have a somewhat of a personality that is a flaw where I want to be perfect. And that perfectionism sounds like, she tries her best all the time. But really what that comes with is a lot of frustration, because nothing goes perfect all the time.
Ever.
And even things I can control, like myself, I'm not going to be perfect every time. And with that comes a lot of frustration. I really want to do really, really well, but sometimes it's out of my control. It's hard to accept that. So I think one thing is to accept things for what they are. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes they go your way. Sometimes they don't. But just take things as they come and adjust. If the first method didn't work, even though it should have, and it's frustrating that it didn't, try another way. There's always another way, and be patient with yourself, for sure.
If you could tell anybody in Canada or the United States, either one really, that is thinking about either going to university or getting into the trades, what would you tell them? Because you actually started off going to college. Mm-hmm. Twice?
Yes. Honestly, if they were on the fence about joining the trade, I would heavily encourage them to join the trade, because truthfully, I wish I joined the trade sooner. I really, really wish that, because at my age, I would have been licensed by now and whatnot, and I'd have so much more knowledge than I do now. Contrary to that is, I also believe that no education is wasted. If you go to school and you're majoring in English and you want to get that degree first, you can also do that, just because being able to communicate effectively is another powerful tool in the trade. Because especially if you're going to run a company or something, you're going to have to be able to effectively communicate to your customers why they have to pay X amount of dollars, and be able to communicate that properly and clearly, and make sure that they understand. So no education is wasted at all. But join the trade, do that. You should do that.
Good deal. Laura, it's been great to have you here. Thank you so much for coming down. This is good. It's been fun to watch you grow through Instagram, and then to see you come in and get to talk to you about your path and what you've done and what you want to do.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I, of course, love that you invited me here. Thank you. Thank you so much.